For my son's 40th birthday, I presented him with the keys to a $250,000 luxury SUV, and my daughter-in-law stood before all our guests and declared a toast to the desperate mother purchasing affection with her wallet. The entire room fell into a stunned silence, then erupted in nervous chuckles. I simply offered a faint smile, turned on my heel, and walked out without uttering a single word. But the maneuver I executed after leaving that party is something she will regret for the rest of her life. If you had witnessed me 6 months ago, exiting that grand hall with 200 eyes fixed on my back, you might have assumed I was an utterly defeated woman. And perhaps that assumption would have been correct. There I stood, Eleanor Vance, 68 years of age, wearing an emerald green dress I had selected just for the occasion, clutching the fob for a gleaming Range Rover SV, while my daughter-in-law raised her crystal flute. "A toast," announced Chloe, her voice dripping with the condescension she'd honed in her brief theater career, to the desperate mother purchasing affection with her wallet. The grand hall at the Plaza Hotel filled with an uneasy mix of laughter. Some guests chuckled nervously, while others let out cruel, open-mouthed cackles. My son, William, stared at the floor, his hands balled into fists, yet he remained silent. He always went quiet when she spoke. Do you know the sensation of 200 gazes stripping away your dignity? It's a slow, agonizing burn. The jazz quartet I'd hired stopped playing mid-song. The orchids decorating each table seemed to droop in shared disgrace. Even the massive silver bow adorning the vehicle appeared to sneer at me. But I just smiled, a slight, almost invisible curve of my lips. I slipped off the high heels I'd worn to feel more commanding, left them right there on the polished oak stage, and walked out in my bare feet, my emerald gown trailing behind me. I didn't speak, not one syllable. Chloe continued her triumphant speech, toasting her own perceived victory. William kept his eyes locked on the ground. The attendees whispered among themselves. But not a single person in that room, not one, could have possibly conceived the intricate scheme I had already set in motion at that very instant. You must understand, when you've constructed a financial fortress from nothing, when you've endured the loss of a spouse, when you've single-handedly raised a boy while needing dough before sunrise to cover the mortgage, you learn that quiet composure is not surrender. Silence is the ultimate strategic weapon. That evening, while they all reveled in my shame, I had already resolved that Chloe Vance would come to understand the genuine definition of total loss. Not swiftly, not in a week, but gradually, element by element, until nothing remained but the dust of her own conceit. The Range Rover was still shimmering under the ballroom's lights as I departed. $250,000 that everyone believed I had foolishly squandered in a sad ploy to reclaim my son's devotion. They were profoundly mistaken. That vehicle wasn't a present. It was the lure. And Chloe, in her boundless vanity, had swallowed it whole. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old, and this is the account of how I dismantled the person who sought to dismantle me. But for you to grasp the full scope of my actions, I must start at the very beginning. From the day that serpent slithered into my world, draped in designer silk and fake sympathy. Because what no one knew that night, what my own son never suspected, was that I had been documenting every discussion, logging every untruth, preparing every countermove for half a decade. The SUV was merely the opening gambit. The main event was just getting started. And if you presume you know how this concludes, you are incorrect. Because there are hidden truths within my family that I myself was unaware of until not long ago. Truths that would upend everything. Truths that would make that toast seem like a minor inconvenience compared to the storm that was coming. But before I reveal the finale, you need to comprehend the prologue. How a widow peddling pies in the old town square came to possess a chain of 23 patisseries. And how her only child, her pride, her entire purpose, became wedded to a wolf in Valentino attire. If you're prepared to hear this narrative, if you truly wish to discover the lengths a mother will traverse when cornered, then subscribe now, because what follows will steal the air from your lungs. This isn't solely my chronicle. It's the story of every parent who has been disparaged, mocked, and cast aside, and it stands as evidence that you should never, ever undervalue a woman who has already conquered every obstacle. You need to appreciate something. I wasn't born into wealth. My father, Henry, was a dockworker. My mother, Rose, took in other people's laundry, scrubbing it on a washboard by the river. We were 8 children, sleeping in 3 beds, trading 1 pair of shoes for school, consuming broth with a single potato when we were fortunate, and when we weren't, we just went hungry. I married Charles Vance at 20. He was a foreman at the shipyard, earning a modest wage, and to me, he was a king. We moved into a cramped two-room apartment. The walls were perpetually damp. The roof leaked during storms, but it was our sanctuary. William was born there on a chilly November evening, with the city's festival lights sparkling outside the window. Charles passed when I was 28. A faulty crane cable. They reported he fell from a significant height at the waterfront. The corporation offered a $4,000 settlement for my husband's life. $4,000 for a lifetime. It didn't even cover the burial costs. That night, with my 8-year-old boy asleep in the bed that still held his father's scent, I made the choice that would alter my destiny forever. My grandmother, Pearl, had instructed me in the art of baking when I was small. It was the only skill I possessed besides weeping, and weeping wouldn't pay the bills. I began by vending scones and tarts from a wicker basket near the bus terminal. I would rise at 2 a.m., mix ingredients until 5, using the oven of a neighbor who charged me $15 per use. By 7 a.m., I was at my spot. William would accompany me before classes. He assisted me in calling out, "Fresh pastries. Get your warm, fresh pastries." Can you imagine how frequently the city officials moved me along? How many times I had to hand over my day's profits so they wouldn't confiscate my basket? But I persisted. I always persisted. One afternoon, Mr. Samuel Fitzgerald, who owned a string of coffee shops, sampled my almond croissants. He proposed to purchase 200 units every day. It was the miracle I had prayed for. With those funds, I leased a tiny storefront on Oak Street, a 5-meter space with a second-hand oven we acquired on installment. Pearl's Patisserie. I named it for my grandmother. William matured surrounded by flour and yeast. He completed his schoolwork at a small desk beside the mixer while I labored. At 16, he could craft flawless baguettes. At 19, he was managing the books. He was brilliant, my boy. He earned his business degree from the local college, while I inaugurated the second shop in the financial district. By William's 30th birthday, we operated 14 patisseries. 14. From the industrial docks to the affluent neighborhoods, we provided jobs for over 90 people, primarily single mothers like I had once been. I compensated them fairly, offered full benefits, a generous year-end bonus. Some wept when I handed them their first healthcare card. I recognized those tears. That's when Chloe arrived on the scene. It was October 2018. I recall it vividly because we had just launched the 15th location. William brought her to the opening gala. Slender, poised like a runway model, wearing a crimson dress that likely cost more than my entire first year's earnings. She possessed that manufactured attractiveness of reality television personalities. A refined nose, enhanced lips, sharp cheekbones that seemed sculpted. "Mom, this is Chloe, my partner." The manner in which he said "my partner." As if he had clinched a grand prize. As if he had finally attained a social standing that I, with all my bakeries, could never provide. Status. Chloe embraced me that day. A lengthy, performative hug while she murmured into my ear, "What a remarkable journey you've had, ma'am. From a market stall to all this. You must feel immense pride." Market stall. Not a founder, not a CEO. A market stall. But I smiled. Of course, I smiled. My son was infatuated. They married 7 months later at the historic St. Michael's Chapel. I funded the entire event. The $18,000 gown from Italy, the flower arrangements shipped from Kenya, the reception for 350 guests featuring caviar and vintage champagne. From Chloe's side, only 15 individuals attended. "My family is quite small," she claimed. "I'm practically an orphan, just like you were widowed so young, just like me." She constantly found methods to parallel her life with mine, to remind me of my sorrows. I gifted them a home in the hills, a $275,000 down payment with monthly installments that I covered without fail. I appointed them to key roles in the corporation, William as chief executive, Chloe as head of brand development, though I never truly understood what brand she was developing. The initial 2 years were tolerable. Chloe hosted soirees where she entertained her acquaintances from the country club. Women who observed her as if she were their fascinating new accessory, the one who had married the wealthy baker's heir. I attended those dinners. I sat in my designated seat, invariably the most distant from Chloe, and listened as she revised her backstory each time. Sometimes she was the child of ambassadors killed in a plane crash. Other times her lineage had lost their wealth in a market downturn. My preferred version was when she stated she had declined a Hollywood acting contract to be with William. True connection outweighs any film set in LA, she'd sigh as her friends praised her sacrifice. But I observed details, minor things, like how she never discussed her youth with any specificity. Like how there wasn't a single childhood photograph in her possession before age 26. Like how her accent occasionally slipped into something distinctly un-American, something she would hastily mask with a tense giggle. And then there were the expenditures. Good heavens, the expenditures. $5,000 purses that materialized weekly. Business trips to Las Vegas that cost more than the annual wages of 6 staff members. A office redesign that totaled $175,000, more than the construction cost of an entire patisserie. When I gently questioned William, he gazed at me as if I had committed a betrayal. "Mom, we're not in the old town square anymore. This is our reality now. Chloe comprehends this world better than we do. This world. The world where I evidently didn't belong." It was in the third year that the situation shifted more drastically. Predictably, Chloe persuaded William that I required more leisure. "Your mother has labored so tirelessly, my darling. She merits enjoying her golden years." Golden years? I was 64 and still arrived at 5 a.m. to inspect the day's bake. But suddenly, I was an elderly retiree. They began omitting me from crucial strategy sessions. "We don't wish to overwhelm you, Mom." They changed ingredient vendors without my input. Chloe has superior connections. They enlisted a business consultant. Chloe's uncle, naturally, who billed $12,000 monthly to advise that we needed to disrupt the market. And I, foolish Eleanor, permitted it because each instance I attempted to object, William would look at me with those exhausted eyes and state, "Mom, please, Chloe only wants to assist. Can't you have faith in my wife?" Faith. What a perilous concept when your own child wields it as a weapon. By the arrival of the 4th year, I had relinquished control of nearly all operations. I remained the legal owner, but they executed the decisions. Chloe managed the banking credentials for security. William endorsed new agreements without reviewing them because Chloe had already vetted them. And then the day arrived that transformed everything. The day I overheard a dialogue I was never meant to hear. It was a Tuesday in April. I remember because I had just returned from my doctor's appointment. Dr. Evans informed me my cholesterol was slightly elevated, nothing alarming, but I should decrease anxiety. I nearly snorted. Decrease anxiety while observing them systematically deconstruct my life's work. I entered the Hilltop residence without announcement. I still possessed my keys, though Chloe had hinted multiple times that I return them for security reasons. My security, apparently, despite my financing the property. I detected voices in the library. Chloe was on the telephone. Her voice had that cloying, honeyed tone she employed when conspiring. I remained in the corridor, pressed against the wall like an intruder in my own asset. "No, my sweet, listen to me," Chloe stated. "The elderly lady is ideal for the strategy. Dr. Green already provided the documentation. We just require 3 individuals to verify unpredictable conduct. I already have the housekeeper and the driver. With 1 additional, we can petition for a declaration of mental incapacity." My heart ceased. I genuinely felt it skip a beat. "William, please." William complies with my every word. He's so weary of being the baker's boy, he'd agree to anything to become his own man. The fool doesn't grasp that without mommy's capital, he is insignificant. Laughter. I heard laughter from the other end of the line. 6 months, maximum. And we possess it all. The 23 patisseries, the investment portfolios, the real estate. Everything transfers to William. And when I divorce him next year, I receive 50%. 11 bakeries, Dominic. 11 damn bakeries valued between 7 and 12 million each. Dominic. I never discovered who Dominic was. Perhaps it's irrelevant. The vehicle is flawless. I've already persuaded the fool that his mother desires to purchase him something lavish for his birthday. When she drops $250,000 on a whim like that, we'll have the definitive evidence she's mentally unstable. What sane individual gifts a $250,000 SUV? I slid down the wall until I was seated on the floor. The icy granite seeped through my dress. My son, my William, the infant I carried for 9 months, who I nourished from my own body, who I reared by selling tarts in the snow. Was he aware of this? Oh, don't be theatrical, Dominic. We aren't eliminating her. We're simply placing her in Serenity Pines. It's an upscale care facility upstate. It even features a golf course. She'll spend her final years medicated and content. It's more than that market vendor warrants. I stood up silently. Every fiber of my being trembled, not from terror but from a cold, focused rage. From that profound fury you only experience when you realize you've been willfully blind. I exited the house without a sound. I drove to my penthouse downtown, the one place I hadn't allowed them to access, and I poured a glass of bourbon. Then another. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living area, examining pictures of William as an infant, a child, a young man, searching for the precise moment I lost him, where my son transformed into the marionette of a stranger. The following day, I executed 3 actions. First, I visited my longtime attorney, Mr. Benjamin Croft. I require copies of every legal document, titles, incorporation papers, everything. Any issues, Mrs. Vance? He inquired. Precaution, Benjamin. Merely precaution. Second, I retained a private investigator, Daniel Cross, former intelligence, specialized in financial deception. I provided him an envelope containing $10,000 cash and 1 directive. I want to know every detail about Chloe Smith. Every detail. Third, and this was the most difficult, I commenced my performance. If they desired a senile old woman, I would deliver precisely that. I started gradually. I forgot the names of staff I'd known for decades. I became confused about critical meetings. Once, I attended a shareholder gathering wearing bedroom slippers, pretending I'd forgotten to change. I observed the glint of triumph in Chloe's eyes. I saw her squeeze William's hand as if to say, "You see. I told you so." Meanwhile, Daniel performed his task. The initial data arrived in a fortnight. Chloe Smith did not exist prior to 2016. No academic records, no birth registration, no financial history. It was as if she materialized from nowhere at age 26. The second piece was more intriguing. There was a Chloe Smith, but she had perished in 2015 in a train derailment in Guatemala. Identical birth date, identical hometown. My daughter-in-law had assumed a deceased individual's identity. The third piece was the detonation. Her authentic name was Isabella Maria Reyes, born in Bogotá, Colombia. She entered the U.S. in 2015, evading embezzlement allegations. She had defrauded 2 families in Bogotá, impersonating the descendant of a coffee magnate. But the most exquisite part, the truly delicious part, was what Daniel uncovered in the 4th week. Isabella Maria Reyes was legally wedded, since 2014, to a Carlos Juan Rodriguez in Cartagena. She never divorced, rendering her marriage to my son entirely invalid. I possessed all the ammunition required to annihilate her, but I wouldn't do it rapidly. No. She had orchestrated my meticulous, gradual downfall. I would reciprocate in kind. I continued my role, each day, a little more disoriented, a little more feeble. Chloe grew so assured of her impending victory that she became careless. She started being more overt with her disdain, more brutal with her remarks. Once, at a family meal, she served my food on a paper plate while everyone else used fine china. "It's just that you've been dropping things lately, mother-in-law. We don't want any mishaps." William said nothing. He merely glanced at his plate and continued eating. Another time, she discovered me looking through old photograph albums and snatched them from my grasp. "Oh, Mrs. Vance, dwelling on history is so unhealthy. You must focus on the future." Then she discarded them in the recycling bin in front of me. They were the only images I had of Charles. I retrieved them from the bin that night, weeping with anger, not grief. And then came the discussion regarding the SUV. "Mom," William said to me one afternoon with Chloe affixed to his arm like a barnacle, "my 40th birthday is approaching. I know you've always wished to grant me something memorable." "Naturally, son. What would you like?" Chloe stepped forward. We spotted a stunning Range Rover SV. It would be the ideal present from a devoted mother. "What is the price?" $250,000, Chloe stated with her serpent's grin. "But you can manage it, correct, mother-in-law? He is your only child, after all." I peered directly into her eyes. For the first time in months, I let the mask of the confused elder slip, and I looked at her for what she was, my quarry. Of course, Chloe. I will give my son precisely what he merits. She misinterpreted my gaze as submission. How profoundly she erred. I purchased the SUV. But I also made other acquisitions. I installed discrete cameras in every patisserie, in my apartment, even in my handbag. I engaged 2 extra legal professionals to draft documents Chloe would never anticipate. I established accounts at 4 separate financial institutions where I relocated funds she knew nothing about. And most critically, I started recording everything. Every discussion, every insult, every fabrication. William's birthday drew nearer. Chloe planned the most extravagant party imaginable. She invited every socialite she aimed to dazzle. She expended over $100,000 on the planning alone. It will be the defining night of our lives, she informed me the prior day. The night everyone witnesses who truly commands this family. She was correct. It would be precisely that. But she didn't know I held a trump card. A trump card I had been cultivating, nurturing, and preparing for months. The night of the celebration arrived. And with it, the commencement of the end for Chloe, or should I say, Isabella Maria Reyes. The initial 5 years of William's marriage were a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Chloe didn't arrive demolishing. She arrived constructing. Constructing a persona, a narrative, an imperceptible cage around my son. She initiated with minor, nearly unnoticeable particulars. She telephoned me thrice daily. Mother-in-law, have you eaten? I dispatched your preferred scone with the chauffeur. Mrs. Vance, William is concerned you skipped your supplements. Mommy Eleanor. Yes, she started calling me Mommy. I located an excellent specialist for your back. Every call was a theatrical production. I knew this because when she concluded, Maria, my housekeeper of 25 years, recounted how Chloe ridiculed me the moment she hung up. Stubborn old bat, she overheard her remark once. She believes I'm her personal caretaker. But in William's presence it was different. That's where her finest acting shone. She had memorized my recipes. When he returned home fatigued from work, she would present him my signature shepherd's pie. Just like your mom's, my love. A falsehood. She purchased it from an expensive caterer in Brentwood and reheated it. I discovered the receipt in her garbage once. $200 for a pie she claimed as her own. She coordinated Sunday family suppers where she invited me to her home. My home, the one I purchased, and seated me at the head of the table while she served. You've toiled enough, ma'am. Now it's my duty to care for this family. The neighbors observed her and remarked on her dedication. What a paragon of devotion. No one witnessed when she served me the leftovers. No one noticed my tea was always tepid. No one realized the floral arrangements she allegedly sent me weekly were the discards from her charity events. But her magnum opus, her true genius, was how she estranged William from me without his awareness. My love, your mother appears weary. Let's not trouble her with corporate issues. William, your mother needs repose. I'll handle delivering the reports to her. Darling, don't mention the investor proposal to her. You'll only cause her anxiety. Each phrase was a brick in the barrier she erected between us. And William, drained from 14-hour workdays, appreciative of a wife who seemed to care for his mother, accepted it all. Chloe was also shrewd with finances. She didn't pilfer blatantly. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, she established a nonprofit, the Future Female Founders Fund. An admirable title, correct. Each month, the corporation contributed $30,000 to that foundation to support women like you, mother-in-law, those who commence with nothing. The foundation existed, certainly. It even hosted galas. Galas where Chloe sparkled in $15,000 gowns, orating about her dedication to enterprising women, while 85% of the capital vanished into operational costs. Her sister was the financial officer, her college roommate the executive director, her yoga instructor, yes, she had a yoga instructor, was the wellness consultant with a $5,000 monthly stipend. And then there were the patisserie modernizations. Innovation, she termed it. She replaced the classic brick ovens we'd utilized for 25 years with German models that cost quadruple and yielded characterless bread. She renovated the timeless storefronts into structures resembling minimalist art galleries. We must attract Gen Z, mother-in-law. Sales started to decline. Loyal patrons complained. The flavor isn't the same, Mrs. Gable, who had been purchasing from our original location since 1998, informed me. But when I mentioned it to William, Chloe interjected. It's opposition to progress. Mommy Eleanor, it's typical. You'll observe, in a few months, revenue will triple. It tripled, indeed, downward. By the third year, we had forfeited 35% of our regular clientele. But the reports Chloe presented William indicated the opposite. She had learned to apply cosmetics to figures, just as she applied cosmetics to her face each morning, and then her psychological offensive against me commenced. Mrs. Vance, don't you recall you already compensated me for this, when she had never requested payment? Mother-in-law, yesterday you consented I could alter the supplier, when we had never conversed about suppliers. Mommy, are you certain we didn't agree on this during the conference, when I hadn't even been invited to that conference? She planted seeds of uncertainty. She made me doubt my own recollection. Once she even relocated my keys, my handbag, my reading glasses, and then found them in absurd locations. Here are your glasses, mother-in-law, in the microwave. You see why I fret about you. William started to regard me differently, with apprehension, with pity. My own son looked at me as if I were a fragile object. Mom, perhaps you should consult a specialist. Mom, Chloe mentions you've been misplacing items. Mom, are you certain you're all right? And I, who could have revealed the recordings I already possessed, who could have exposed his wife's true nature, remained silent because I needed Chloe to grow complacent. I needed her to drop her defenses entirely. The facade of the perfect daughter-in-law only crumbled when we were alone. That's when the genuine Isabella emerged. The plot to have me declared mentally incompetent commenced on a Thursday in November. I recall because Chloe appeared at my apartment with Dr. Green, a psychiatrist who seemed more preoccupied with his designer cufflinks than my cognitive state. It's merely a standard assessment, mother-in-law, simply to confirm everything is in order. The doctor interrogated me for 90 minutes. What year is it? Who leads the nation? Calculate 23 plus 49. I answered everything correctly, but I noticed Chloe subtly signaling him when I wasn't making direct eye contact. The patient exhibits preliminary indicators of age-related cognitive decline, the charlatan concluded, putting away his notepad. I advise continuous monitoring and a review of her capacity to manage fiscal decisions. They remunerated him $20,000 for that fraudulent diagnosis. I know because I accessed Chloe's encrypted cloud storage. Well, not me personally. Maria's nephew, a cybersecurity student, accomplished it for $3,000 and the pledge of a permanent position for his aunt. After the doctor came the staged incidents. Chloe started organizing meals where she placed me in untenable situations. She'd serve me scalding tea, and when I sipped and recoiled, she'd announce to everyone, "Oh, she can't regulate her swallowing reflex anymore." She'd provide me with toddler's utensils, and when I requested standard cutlery, she'd sigh theatrically. It's the fourth instance this month she's forgotten how to use regular forks. Once, at a friend's anniversary party, she gave me a vitamin that induced such drowsiness I had to clutch the furniture to remain upright. You see. This is why we cannot leave her unsupervised. She consumes the incorrect pills. But the masterstroke was when she counterfeited my signature on a $50,000 check for her phantom foundation. When I protested at the bank, she had already prepared the terrain. She had informed the branch manager, with fabricated tears, that her mother-in-law was losing her memory and signing documents unknowingly. Mrs. Vance, the manager told me with that patronizing tone reserved for the aged, perhaps you should contemplate granting your son power of attorney to handle your assets. William was there, observing me with a blend of embarrassment and concern. Mom, it's all right. It was an error, but I believe he's correct. Chloe and I can support you with this. Do you know the sensation when your own child, your flesh and blood, your universe, looks at you as if you're a complication to be managed? It feels like your spirit is being shredded, fragment by fragment. That night I wept. I wept as I hadn't wept since Charles's passing. But amidst the tears, I formed a resolution. If they desired a conflict, they would receive one. I initiated my counteroffensive subtly. First, I consulted Dr. Elizabeth Reed, a neurologist with 35 years of practice, and more importantly, a long-standing professional rival of Dr. Green since he plagiarized her thesis. Doctor, I require exhaustive neurological exams, and I need them to be indisputable. I underwent the full spectrum. MRIs, cognitive batteries, genetic screenings. The outcomes were definitive. My brain was healthier than most 50-year-olds. Next, I commenced documenting everything with an obsessive precision. Every conversation captured on my concealed audio device. Every document scanned and stored in triplicate. Every financial transaction backed up with screenshots and printed statements. I recruited 3 new staff members at the patisseries, women I trusted implicitly, who were, in reality, my informants. I paid them a bonus to observe and report every action Chloe took. One was a former forensic accountant and detected accounting anomalies I pretended to overlook. Another was a former federal investigator and uncovered fictitious invoices totaling millions. The third was simply exceptionally perceptive and logged Chloe extracting cash from the registers when she presumed no one was watching. But the most brilliant action I took was hiring Sophia, a retired stage actress who now coached. I compensated her $15,000 to instruct me in the craft of performance. Yes, performance. To simulate cognitive decline convincingly but not excessively, to have episodes at the precisely opportune moments to bolster Chloe's confidence. Once, during a pivotal meeting with potential investors, I pretended to mistake Chloe for my late mother. Margaret, what are you doing here? I believed you were in Vermont. Chloe instantly seized the chance. You observe, gentlemen, this is precisely why we must restructure the company's leadership. What she didn't know was that I had recorded her phone call that morning where she detailed precisely what I would do and how they should react. The investors themselves were accomplices in her scheme. By January, Chloe was so convinced of my dementia that she grew reckless. She spoke openly in my presence about her intentions. She transferred funds without concealment. She even inadvertently showed me the admission paperwork for Serenity Pines and then feigned horror. Oh, mother-in-law, these aren't for you. They're for a colleague's grandmother. Serenity Pines, $4,000 monthly to confine me, sedated, in a 12-by-12 room. They had already prepaid the first 6 months. The date was scheduled for after William's birthday, after the $250,000 SUV demonstrated my mental frailty. But I also had a date marked on my calendar and a strategy one had refined over months of humiliation and anguish. The final confrontation was nearing, and Chloe had no clue she had already been defeated. The systematic dismantling of my assets commenced with Pearl's Patisserie in the financial district, my second establishment, the one I inaugurated with the perseverance of 6 years vending in the square. One Monday, I arrived to find a notice, closed for renovations. No one had consulted me. It's a surprise we planned for you, mother-in-law, Chloe told me with her jackal smile. We're converting it into an artisanal coffee bar. Conventional bakeries aren't profitable anymore. When I examined the architectural plans, I nearly collapsed. They had demolished the brick oven I constructed personally. The handcrafted mosaic tiles I laid individually, they had discarded them. In their place, sterile white surfaces, and a $125,000 espresso apparatus. Where are my staff? I inquired about Anna, Sophia, and Lena, who had been with me for 18 years. We released them. They weren't trained in latte art. Released them. As if they were disposable objects. Anna had 2 children in university. Sophia was supporting her disabled brother. Lena had recently lost her spouse. But Chloe was indifferent. The next to fall was the Dockside Patisserie, the most lucrative, the one generating $175,000 monthly. Chloe converted it into a culinary destination, where a croissant cost $4 and was served with Himalayan salt on a slate tile. The local dockworkers could no longer afford to patronize it. Her clientele now were influencers from the city center who arrived in rideshares to capture images for social media. By the time she commandeered the third bakery, the one in the suburbs, I couldn't even summon tears. I merely observed as they disassembled my life, piece by piece, while I pretended not to comprehend the proceedings. Sign here, Mrs. Vance. What is this, Chloe? Nothing significant, mother-in-law. Merely tedious administrative documents. Documents that transferred operational control to a corporation Chloe had formed, C&W Culinary Ventures. Chloe and William. My name, my heritage, utilized to rob me. But the instant that shattered my soul was when I heard William defend his wife. We were in his office, which was formerly my office, and I had just received the quarterly sales report. We had lost 45% of our income in 7 months. Son, this isn't functioning. The customers are departing. Mom, you don't comprehend contemporary commerce. I don't comprehend, son. I constructed this kingdom from nothing. That was 25 years ago, Mom. The landscape has transformed. Chloe purchased that certification online for $4,000. Daniel, my investigator, had even procured the Bitcoin transaction record. William, please heed me. Something is amiss with your wife. That's when he detonated. My son, my baby, shouted at me for the first time in his existence. Enough, Mom. Enough assaulting Chloe. She is the finest occurrence in my life. You're simply envious because you're no longer the focal point. Because I don't require you any longer. Every syllable was a laceration. I rose slowly, with the scant dignity I retained, and proceeded to the door. Mom, wait. I didn't intend, it's acceptable, son. You're correct. You don't require me any longer. That night in my apartment, I unlocked the safe concealed behind a landscape painting. Inside were all the documents Daniel had assembled, the proof of Chloe's bigamy, the bank statements from Switzerland where she was siphoning capital, the audio recordings where she plotted my institutionalization. But there was something else. Something neither Chloe nor William knew. 6 years before Chloe materialized, when the enterprise began expanding rapidly, my accountant, elderly Mr. Abramovitz, offered me counsel. Mrs. Vance, safeguard your holdings. One can never be certain. I heeded his advice. I established a trust in Luxembourg, entirely legal, where the genuine assets resided. The 23 patisseries Chloe believed she controlled were merely license operations, the name, the formulas, the brand rights. Everything was in that trust, and I was the sole beneficiary. Chloe was pilfering hollow vessels. But there was more. During the preceding 8 months, while feigning cognitive decline, I had been acquiring properties through intermediaries. 8 locations in the city's prime districts, and I had covertly rehired every employee Chloe had dismissed. William's birthday was approaching. Chloe had orchestrated the gala of the decade. She had invited 400 people, spent $125,000 on decor, hired a renowned DJ for the evening. It will be legendary, mother-in-law, she told me while finalizing the seating chart. Everyone will witness the magnificent gift you're bestowing upon your son. $250,000 on a car. Such munificence. I peered into her eyes for a moment. Just a moment. I permitted her to perceive the reality. I let her see that I knew everything. But before she could process what she'd witnessed, I reverted to my confused elder persona. Yes, my dear. I'm going to grant him exactly what he deserves. Chloe laughed. A laugh that would soon solidify in her windpipe, because I had invited a few additional attendees to the gala. Individuals Chloe wasn't anticipating. Individuals who would alter everything. The explosion was imminent. Purchasing that Range Rover was the most agonizing and emancipating experience of my life. Agonizing because it confirmed my son valued materialism over his mother. Emancipating because it was the perfect trap for my design. I visited the Range Rover dealership in the city center on a Thursday morning. Chloe insisted on accompanying me to assist you, so you don't become bewildered, mother-in-law. She wore an emerald outfit that shrieked affluence and a smirk that shrieked triumph. The sales representative, a young woman named Jessica, attended to us with that blend of reverence and avarice endemic to luxury salespeople. Chloe instantly assumed command. We desire the most fully equipped SV available. The autobiography, in Santorini black with ivory interior. Superb selection, madam. That configuration is $255,000. Ideal, Chloe declared before I could respond. My mother-in-law will remit via wire transfer. Jessica nearly gasped. Wire transfer. Bank transfer, I amended. But I require some custom alterations. Chloe observed me curiously. What alterations, mother-in-law? I want the headrests embroidered, for William, with a mother's eternal love. And I require a personalized license plate. Certainly. What would you like the plate to state? Justice 40. Chloe chuckled. Oh, mother-in-law, how clever. Justice for his 40th. That wasn't the reason, but I let her believe what she wished. During the 4 weeks it required to prepare the vehicle, Chloe was euphoric. She informed everyone about the extravagant present that poor Mrs. Vance insisted on purchasing. You observe how she is, she told her country club companions. She spends indiscriminately. That's why we must protect her from herself. She planned the most ostentatious affair I had ever witnessed. She leased the plaza's grand ballroom, the identical venue where celebrities hosted weddings. She employed the premier event coordinators, the ones charging $30,000 for mere consultation. The guest list was a spectacle itself. She had invited every social elite she sought to impress, venture capitalists, media personalities, even a minor European royalty. But most significantly, she had invited the prospective partners William had been courting for global expansion. This gala will be our ascension to the throne, I overheard her say on a recorded call. After this, no one will question who governs the Vance patisserie empire. 3 days preceding the party, I dispatched my own invitations. Discreet, hand-delivered by Maria. I invited Carlos Juan Rodriguez, Chloe's legal spouse, who had recently arrived from Colombia after years searching for her. Daniel had located him operating a food truck in San Diego, attempting to save for a private detective. I finance his flight, his accommodation, and $5,000 for his participation. I invited the authentic Dr. Green, not the corrupt psychiatrist, but his identical twin brother, a state attorney general specializing in white-collar crime, who had been investigating his sibling for 3 years for selling fraudulent medical endorsements. I invited Dr. Elizabeth Reed, the neurologist possessing all my tests confirming my impeccable mental health, alongside video proof that I had been acting the dementia episodes. I invited the genuine partners of the investors. Chloe had deceived individuals who had lost fortunes in her prior scams, and had been pursuing her for years. And I invited the real Chloe Smith, who hadn't perished in any derailment. She was alive and residing in Guatemala, profoundly astonished to learn someone had stolen her identity and declared her deceased. But my headline attendee was another, someone no one anticipated. The day of the gala arrived. I donned my finest attire, the emerald green one. It wasn't costly or flashy, but I appeared dignified. I appeared as what I was, a general about to claim her ultimate victory. I arrived at the ballroom early. The SUV was already positioned, gleaming under the spotlights with an enormous silver ribbon Chloe had insisted upon, to make it appear more like a gift from a mother-in-law. The guests started to appear. Chloe shone as never before in a $20,000 silver gown she had acquired with my patisserie revenue. She air-kissed cheeks, distributed grins, ensured everyone recognized the true hostess. William arrived fashionably late, as she had orchestrated for a dramatic entrance, she'd stated. When he entered, the live DJ initiated a fanfare, the servers uncorked vintage Dom Perignon, and Chloe guided him to the vehicle. Observe, everyone! Chloe exclaimed, seizing the microphone. The present from a doting mother to her sole son. That's when I stood and advanced toward them. The room hushed. I took the vehicle keys, which were displayed in a glass case, and approached the microphone. Before I present this gift, I stated in a resonant, clear voice, I wish to propose a toast. Chloe handed me a flute with a patronizing smirk. Naturally, mother-in-law. Express a few sentiments. I elevated my glass and peered directly into my son's eyes. I toast to clarity, for clarity, even when it wounds, invariably emerges. That's when my special attendees materialized. While Chloe schemed my ruin, I wasn't solitary. I had confederates she never perceived. The first was Maria, my steadfast housekeeper. But Maria was far more than an employee. She was my spiritual kin, the one who aided me in raising William when I labored 20-hour days. Her nephew, Alex, the one who's now a network security expert, matured alongside William. They were like siblings until Chloe appeared and convinced my son it was unseemly to fraternize with the domestic staff. Maria had been documenting everything, every degradation, every theft, every deceit. She possessed an outdated phone concealed in her uniform pocket, and had chronicled for years of mistreatment. Videos of Chloe removing cash from the tills. Audio of her deriding me with her clique. Photographs of documents she signed, forging my signature. Mrs. Eleanor, she told me one evening, weeping. It fractures my spirit to observe how she treats you. And young William, oh, young William is adrift. The second ally was a shock even to me. Amanda Lee, Chloe's closest friend. Yes, the identical one who giggled at all the humiliations, who applauded her cruelties. It transpired Amanda had also been a casualty of Chloe. She sought me out one twilight at my apartment, trembling like an aspen leaf. "Mrs. Vance, I must speak with you. Chloe defrauded me of $200,000. The tale was predictable. Chloe had persuaded her to invest in an enterprise importing Australian opals. The enterprise was fictitious. The funds vanished, and when Amanda confronted her, Chloe threatened to ruin her reputation by exposing a fabricated scandal. I possess all the messages, the wire transfers, the counterfeit agreements, Amanda informed me, handing me an external hard drive. But there's additional. Chloe maintains a confidential account where she stashes everything she steals. The passcode is her first husband's birth date. Her first husband, Carlos Juan, the one to whom she was still lawfully wed. The third ally was the most unforeseen. My estate lawyer, Ms. Victoria Thorne, a woman in her 70s, resolute as titanium, who had witnessed too many instances of predatory spouses devastating family legacies. "Eleanor," she told me in her office overlooking the park, "what's transpiring is illicit, and I have a notion." Her notion was brilliant. While Chloe believed she was transferring the patisseries to her name, she was actually endorsing documents that didn't state what she presumed they stated. Victoria had employed an archaic legal principle. The transfers mandated a secondary validation signature that never materialized. All the papers Chloe had falsified were legally void. Furthermore, Victoria added with a terrifying smile, "I have a brother in the Economic Crimes Unit. He will be immensely interested in your daughter-in-law's fictitious foundation, but my most valuable ally was someone Chloe had forgotten existed. Consuela Maria Reyes, her biological mother. Daniel located her in Bogotá, residing in a church-operated shelter. Chloe, or Isabella, her authentic name, had deserted her 12 years prior, informing her she was wedding an Argentine industrialist and would return for her. My daughter was perpetually avaricious, Consuela Maria told me via a secured video link, tears in her eyes. From her youth, she deceived, stole, manipulated. I believed she would evolve. But when she stole her grandfather's retirement fund and permitted him to expire, incapable of affording medication, I recognized I had nurtured a fiend. Consuela Maria possessed something priceless. Isabella's original birth record, her school transcripts where she had been expelled for larceny, and most critically, an active extradition warrant from Colombia for fraud. "Mrs. Vance," she expressed, "assist me in coming to the U.S. I desire to witness my daughter's countenance when she learns her mother is alive and prepared to testify against her. I finance her airfare, accommodated her in a discreet hotel, and prepared her for the gala. Meanwhile, I continued perfecting my act. Each day, I seemed more disoriented, more vulnerable. Chloe was so intoxicated by her imminent triumph that she didn't notice when I installed surveillance in her residence. She didn't observe when I duplicated all the files from her laptop. She didn't comprehend her mobile was monitored. A week before the birthday, I overheard her conversing with Dominic. After the gala, we institutionalized the old woman. I already have the orderlies contracted. They'll arrive at 2 a.m. when everyone is inebriated. They'll transport her sedated, and by the time William awakens, his mom will already be at Serenity Pines. What if the son objects? He won't object. I'll inform him his mother attempted self-harm. I have sedatives I'll position in her handbag. With that and the vehicle incident, any magistrate will side with us." I listened to my civil death sentence with a tranquility that startled me. I felt no dread. I felt no sorrow. I only felt a frigid resolve. That night, I contacted all my Confederates. "The day of the gala, I require you to be prepared. We will present Chloe the performance of her lifetime." Amanda confirmed she would bring the fraud evidence. Victoria would have the legal papers prepared. Consuela Maria would be waiting in a hotel suite. Maria's nephew, Alex, would have all the recordings on a tablet linked to the ballroom's display system. And I possessed the ultimate detonation, something I had uncovered merely 48 hours prior that would transform everything. Chloe wasn't merely married to Carlos Juan. She was expectant with Dominic's child. The father was not William. The war was about to conclude, and I possessed all the artillery. 3 nights preceding William's birthday, I drove alone to Austin. I informed everyone I was visiting an ailing aunt. A fabrication. I was meeting Mr. Javier Mendez, the premier estate attorney in Texas, and by fortunate coincidence, my late husband Charles's second cousin. "Eleanor, are you certain regarding this?" he inquired after examining the documents I presented. "More certain than ever, Javier." My son selected his trajectory. Now I select mine. That evening, I endorsed a new last will, one that nobody knew about, one that would bequeath Chloe and William precisely what they warranted. But the will was merely a component of the plan. The truly ingenious part was what I had been constructing covertly for the preceding 6 years, while everyone presumed I was a helpless senior. You see, when I commenced suspecting Chloe, I inaugurated a parallel corporation, New Dawn Bakeries, LLC, registered under a trust of which I was the exclusive beneficiary. While Chloe was embezzling from the patisseries, she was unaware I was erecting an empire she never detected. 9 new bakeries in Austin, Charlotte, and Phoenix, all supervised by the personnel Chloe had terminated for incompetence. Anna, Sophia, Lena, all were now regional directors with equity stakes. They were grossing $550,000 monthly, capital that proceeded directly into accounts solely I controlled. But that wasn't all. During my medical visits to Houston, which Chloe presumed were for dementia evaluations, I was actually finalizing agreements with international distributors. I had licensed the global franchise rights to my recipes for $18 million. Yes, dollars. The capital was in a Texas-based trust, inaccessible to her, anticipating my directive. Mrs. Vance, Jim Robertson, the CEO of Global Gourmet Enterprises, told me, "Your formulas are platinum. We're launching 75 sites across the Sun Belt." While I was signing that contract, Chloe was in Cancun pilfering pennies. A mother's silence is her sharpest weapon. Returning to my apartment, I unlocked the safe behind the landscape painting. Inside, alongside all the documents I had compiled, I included the new will. But there was also something further. A letter for William, a letter I had redrafted 100 times, and would only deliver if events proceeded as I anticipated. "Son," the letter commenced. "When you peruse this, you will likely despise me, but I prefer your sincere hatred to your manipulated affection." The day preceding the gala, I positioned the final components of the puzzle. First, I visited my financial institution and transferred $250,000 to a designated account. It wasn't for the SUV. That was already settled. It was for something far superior. Next, I conferred with the legitimate staff of Serenity Pines, the facility where Chloe planned to commit me. Dr. Freeman, I informed the director, my daughter-in-law prepaid 6 months to have me confined against my will. Here is the transaction record. I showed him the copy I had taken from Chloe's desk. "This is unlawful imprisonment, and you would be accomplices." The men blanched. "Mrs. Vance, we were unaware. She claimed you had endorsed the documents." "A falsehood. But I will extend you an arrangement. You will execute precisely what I am about to request, and I will not pursue legal action. In fact, I will remunerate you double what she provided." The scheme was straightforward. When the orderlies arrived for me, they would be escorting someone else, someone who had consented to aid me for $8,000 and the pledge of an extended holiday. That night, the final one before the birthday, I couldn't rest. I sat on my terrace observing the metropolis lights, sipping a chamomile infusion like my grandmother Pearl taught me. At 2 a.m., my phone vibrated. It was a voice memo from Chloe, dispatched erroneously, or perhaps intending to torment me. "Dominic, my darling, after tomorrow, we are liberated." The old woman enters the facility. William inherits the liability and the obligations, and we journey to Monaco with all the capital. The infant will be born in Europe, distant from this purgatory. I adore you. The infant. The child my son believed was his. I activated my recorder and preserved that message. It was the ultimate evidence I required. The birthday dawned radiant, without a cloud in the sky. It was November 12th, coincidentally, the anniversary of my grandmother Pearl's passing. How fitting. I bathed leisurely, styled my hair meticulously, donned the emerald green dress. In the mirror, I saw Eleanor Vance. Not the victim Chloe had fabricated, but the champion I always was. Before departing, I made one final communication. "Maria, initiate the plan. It is time." Somewhere in the city, my allies were preparing. The ballroom's displays had been compromised by Alex, Maria's nephew. The videos were cued. The special attendees were in position. And I, with the SUV keys in my clutch beside a flash drive containing 4 years of documented offenses, proceeded to the gala. Chloe presumed that night would be my ultimate disgrace. She had no conception it would be hers. When I entered the grand ballroom, Chloe was already in her domain, welcoming attendees like a monarch, her silver gown glittering beneath the crystal chandeliers. William was at her side, uneasy in his tuxedo, smiling that strained grin he wore when she exhibited him as a trophy. "There's the luminary of the evening," Chloe proclaimed when she noticed me, employing that artificial tone she utilized publicly. "The benevolent mother who bestows $250,000 vehicles." 400 gazes swiveled toward me, some with mockery, others with pity, most with the savage fascination of those who relish observing others stumble. I advanced gradually, smiling. Chloe embraced me theatrically for the photographers. "Your period is concluded, mother-in-law," she whispered into my ear. "After tonight, everyone will recognize you're insane." "You're accurate," I whispered in response. "After tonight, everyone will recognize the truth." She laughed, presuming I was delirious. The banquet unfolded according to her script. Chloe had arranged everything to make me appear incompetent. My dish was distinct from the others. Pureed vegetables because ma'am has difficulty digesting. My crystal contained water while everyone consumed champagne. She cannot drink with her prescriptions. My seat was isolated from the primary table, so she's more at ease. Each mortification was met with uneasy titters from the attendees. I observed significant financiers exchange looks. I noticed the partners' spouses murmuring, all thinking the identical notion, "Poor senile old woman." At 10:30, it was moment for the toast. Chloe seized the microphone with her glass of $200 a bottle Krug. "A toast," she declared, her voice trained to feign sentiment. "To the desperate mother purchasing affection with her wallet." The ballroom burst into laughter. Cruel, pitiless, horrid laughter. That was my cue. I stood slowly, removed my heels calmly, and walked barefoot toward the exit. But before reaching the doorway, I halted and turned back. "You're correct, Chloe," I expressed, taking the microphone she had set down. "I am a fool. I was foolish to have faith, foolish to trust, foolish not to perceive what all of you are about to witness now." I extracted my cell and pressed transmit. On the massive screens in the ballroom, a video commenced playing. It was Chloe in my home, extracting money from my wallet while I dozed. Her voice was distinct. "Foolish old crone. She doesn't even realize I'm robbing her." The muttering started instantly. Chloe sprinted toward the screens. "Deactivate that. It's fabricated. It's manipulated." But the videos persisted. Chloe signing papers with my name. Chloe at the financial institution stating her mother-in-law had dementia. Chloe with Dr. Green remunerating him $20,000 for the false diagnosis. "William," she shrieked desperately. "Intervene." My son was petrified, observing his universe disintegrate. "Wait," I stated into the microphone. "The paramount is yet to arrive." The subsequent recording was from the prior day. Chloe conversing with Dominic. "The infant isn't William's, my love, but he's such a simpleton, he'll never demand a paternity test." A collective gasp traversed the ballroom. William turned ashen. "Infant?" he questioned in a fractured voice. "What infant?" Chloe was ensnared. She couldn't refute the videos. She couldn't refute her voice. She couldn't refute anything. "But there's still additional," I continued. "I'd like to present some special attendees." The doors parted. First, Carlos Juan Rodriguez, Chloe's legal husband, entered. "Greetings, Isabella Maria," he expressed with a Colombian accent. 8 years seeking you, my darling, and you're still my wife." Chloe appeared ready to faint. "No, you, how?" Then the authentic Chloe Smith entered, alive and well. "A pleasure," the woman stated. "I am the genuine Chloe Smith, and I'm present to report identity theft." Then Attorney General Green, the corrupt doctor's sibling, entered. "Miss Isabella Maria Reyes, you are under apprehension for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and bigamy." But the ultimate blow originated from the last individual to enter. Consuela Maria Reyes, Chloe's mother. "My child," the woman expressed, tears in her eyes. "Was it worthwhile? Was it worthwhile to devastate another family like you devastated ours?" Chloe collapsed to her knees. Her silver gown crumpled on the parquet floor. Her immaculate cosmetics streaked with her tears. The mask had finally descended. "Eleanor," she screamed. "Please consider William. Consider your son." I walked to her, crouched to her level, and uttered softly but distinctly, so everyone could hear, "I did consider him. That's why I executed all this, to rescue him from you." The authorities apprehended her that night. But before they removed her, I approached her one final instance. "The SUV was never for William. It was the cost of your exposure. $250,000 to unveil a criminal. The optimal investment of my existence." The ballroom was utterly silent. The attendees didn't know where to direct their gaze. The servers had ceased serving. Even the DJ was mute. William remained standing in the identical location like a monument. William looked at me as if he was perceiving me for the first time. There, standing in the center of the ballroom in his $6,000 tuxedo. He resembled a misplaced child. The identical child who wept when he skinned his elbow. The one who embraced me when nightmares frightened him. "Mom, all this. You orchestrated all this." "No, son. Your wife orchestrated all this. I merely defended myself." He crumbled into a chair. The guests started to depart silently, like evacuating a funeral. Within 20 minutes, the ballroom was vacant. Only William, myself, Maria, and the legal counsel I had brought remained. "Mr. Sharp," I told the lawyer, "please elucidate to my son his legal standing." The lawyer, a 70-year-old man with a bulldog's countenance, unlatched his briefcase. "Mr. Vance, your marriage is void. Mrs. Chloe, or rather Isabella, was already wed when she united with you. That signifies legally you were never spouses. And the properties, the financial accounts, everything under both your names can be claimed exclusively by you. She is entitled to nothing. And the infant." My heart ached then, observing my son inquire about an infant that wasn't his. "William," I uttered gently. "She's expectant by Dominic, her lover. She confessed it in the recordings." He shattered. My son, my resilient boy, wept as I hadn't witnessed him weep since his father died. I moved to embrace him, but he repelled me. "Don't contact me. You deceived me, too. You led me to believe you were losing your mind. To shield you. I didn't require your shielding. I needed you to confide in me." "Confide in you, William. When I attempted to caution you, you yelled at me. You informed me I was jealous. You expelled me from your life because she persuaded you." "Precisely. She persuaded you so effortlessly, so rapidly. And you desired me to confide in you." The reality struck him like a physical blow. He rose unsteadily and staggered toward the exit. "Where are you proceeding?" "To inebriate myself until I forget I exist." "No, you are returning home. You are going to sleep. And tomorrow we will rectify this catastrophe. Together. Together. Mom, you liquidated the patisseries, didn't you? That's why she couldn't locate the capital." "I didn't liquidate them. I secured them. They're still ours." "Ours." "They were invariably ours, son. Invariably." That night, I escorted him home. The residence I had financed, but that for the first instance felt like his. While he slept off his intoxication, I examined the papers Chloe had abandoned. I uncovered further horrors. Loans under my name for $600,000. Contracts with fictitious vendors. Even a counterfeit labor litigation drafted to extract more capital from me. The subsequent morning, Chloe attempted to negotiate from the detention center where she awaited her adjudication. She dispatched her attorney, a weasel-faced man who charged $3,000 merely for the consultation. "My client is prepared to depart the nation if you dismiss the allegations." "No. She could disclose information about your son that would impair his standing." "What information?" "That he was the prey of a con artist. Everyone already knows. We possess compromising images." I laughed. For the first instance in months, I genuinely laughed. Doctored images, like the ones she utilized to blackmail Amanda Lee. A digital forensic specialist already analyzed them. All fabricated. The attorney swallowed. "What do you desire, then?" "Equity. For her to compensate for every dollar stolen, every lie uttered, every day of psychological torment. That could be 25 years in penitentiary. Then let it be 30. 42 hours post-birthday, the divorce was finalized. Well, the annulment, since there couldn't be a divorce from a union that never existed. Chloe was adjudicated to 18 years in federal prison. It would have been lengthier, but her pregnancy afforded her leniency. Dominic, her paramour, escaped to Brazil, where he was apprehended for other frauds. Carlos Juan, the legal spouse, desired no association with her and returned to Colombia. The infant was delivered in prison. A boy. Chloe's mother, Consuela Maria, petitioned for custody and was granted it. She visited me before departing. Mrs. Eleanor, I am so apologetic for everything my daughter perpetrated. You are not accountable, ma'am. I will nurture this child differently. I will instruct him in ethics. I will instruct him to labor. He will not resemble his mother. I provided her an envelope with $15,000 for the child. So he possesses opportunities. The woman wept. You are what my daughter could never be, a genuine lady. It required William months to pardon me. Not for my actions but for my methodology. For not confiding in him. For treating him as an adversary instead of a fellow casualty. But gradually, laboring collaboratively to reconstruct the patisseries, we rediscovered one another. We became mother and son anew. We became a family anew. The $250,000 SUV remained in the hotel's parking structure for weeks until I determined its fate. 6 months following that night, I awoke early as customary. It was 5 a.m., and the metropolis was just commencing to stir. I prepared myself a chamomile tea precisely as my grandmother instructed and sat on the balcony to observe the sunrise. The Range Rover was still in the hotel lot, accumulating dust and storage fees. $250,000 transmuted into a metal and leather memento of the night I reclaimed my son. William had transformed significantly. He no longer wore the $6,000 suits Chloe purchased for him. He was back in his simple denim and t-shirts. He would arrive at 4 a.m. at the Oak Street Patisserie, the inaugural, the original, to assist with the initial bake of the day. Just like when I was a kid, he told me one morning while we kneaded dough jointly. Recall, Mom, I completed my assignments while you baked. I recall every instant, son. Every moment. The patisseries recuperated swiftly. We terminated all the consultants Chloe had enlisted. We reverted to the original formulas. We reinstated the terminated personnel. In 3 months, we regained 70% of our lost patrons. In 6, we were performing superior to ever. But the most significant aspect wasn't the revenue. It was observing William become himself anew. One day, he summoned me from the financial district patisserie. Mom, come swiftly. I must exhibit you something. When I arrived, there was a queue of patrons encircling the block, all anticipating freshly baked bread, precisely like the former days. Observe that, he told me with tears in his eyes. This is what you erected. This is authentic. Not Chloe's pretentious cafes. This. Mrs. Gable, our most long-standing patron, approached with her shopping satchel. Eleanor, I'm so delighted the genuine bread has returned. The traditional variety. The variety that tastes like home. That afternoon, William and I sat in the office, the identical one where I had uncovered Chloe's initial falsehoods, and we genuinely conversed for the first instance in years. Mom, I must request your forgiveness. No, son. Allow me to conclude. I failed you. I exchanged you for a woman who pledged to make me someone notable. I didn't comprehend I already was someone. I was your son. The son of the most formidable woman I know. We wept together, embracing one another like when he was a child. And I was his entire universe. And the SUV, he inquired later. What are you intending with it? It's yours if you desire it. I don't desire it. It reminds me of everything negative. Then we'll vend it. No, I have a superior notion. His notion astonished me. He desired to auction it and utilize the proceeds to establish a legitimate foundation, not like Chloe's fraudulent one. A foundation to aid women who are casualties of financial and emotional abuse. We'll designate it the Pearl Foundation, he expressed. Like your grandmother, like your first patisserie, like your loyal housekeeper. The auction was an occurrence, not for publicity. We aimed to be unobtrusive, but the narrative had disseminated. The French ambassador's spouse, who had been at the birthday gala and witnessed everything, acquired the SUV for $275,000. To me, it's not merely an automobile, she told me. It's an emblem that women can protect themselves. With that $275,000 plus $175,000 I contributed, plus $125,000 William contributed from his personal reserves, we established the foundation. In the inaugural year, we assisted 62 women exit abusive relationships, recover their finances, and rebuild their lives. One of them was Amanda Lee, Chloe's former friend. She not only recovered the $200,000 stolen from her, but with our legal assistance, she discovered her husband, who had threatened to seize her children, had also been pilfering from her. Now she supervises one of our new bakeries in Austin. Anna, Sophia, Lena, all the personnel Chloe terminated are now minority partners in the patisseries. They each possess 7% of the branch they manage. In 5 years, they will possess 25%. Maria retired, but she still visits every morning for tea with me. Her nephew, Alex, engineered a security network for all the patisseries, so no one can ever embezzle from you again, Mrs. Eleanor. And me, I still rise at 5 a.m. I still supervise the production. I'm still Eleanor Vance, the baker from the docks who constructed a dominion with her hands. But now I am more. I am living verification that it's never too late to defend yourself. That quiet composure can be an armament. That occasionally you must dismantle everything to be able to reconstruct. Chloe remains incarcerated. She has 12 years remaining. Periodically I receive updates about her through her mother. She states she's studying pastry arts in prison. That she desires to depart reformed. That she pleads for forgiveness. I don't despise her. Hatred is attributing her excessive importance. She simply doesn't exist in my world any longer. A week ago, William provided me the finest news. He's seeing Sarah, the daughter of my lawyer, Victoria, a diligent, sincere woman who operates her own legal practice specializing in domestic law. This occasion is distinct, Mom. Sarah cherishes me for who I am, not for what I possess. And how do you know? Because I narrated the entire chronicle with Chloe on our initial date. And her reaction was, "Your mother is my champion. I aspire one day to be half as formidable as she is." Last night, while the three of us were dining, Sarah told me something that touched my core. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for not surrendering, for combating, for instructing us that a mother's love isn't about permitting her children to do as they please, but about safeguarding them, even from themselves. Never underestimate a woman who has already lost everything." And thus my chronicle concludes. The chronicle of how I bestowed a $250,000 vehicle to reclaim something immeasurable. My self-respect, my family, my existence. If this testimony touched your spirit, if you know someone who requires to hear it, share it. Remark where you're viewing from. Inform us if you've endured something analogous. And subscribe to Winds of Thought for further narratives of women who decline to be casualties. Because we all harbor a warrior within. We merely need to recall how to awaken her. Please like this video and share your own stories of resilience in the comments below.